Okay. So nice. Yeah, I can't do Karen's portion. Well, I could like fumble through it, but I'm not gonna be able to, knock it out of the park like she can. We got to get. Oh, there's Barry.
Yeah.
Hey guys.
Barry, and there she is. All right.
Christine.
Speaking of the devil.
We were like,
Hey,
where
Barry.
are they?
Hey,
Oh my
Christine.
God,
What's up?
Can we do their part?
Triplers was on for a short bit. They were on the app. They're going to try and go through the browser. Then Dr. Montgomery should be on as well. Sure. He was actually on a little bit ago, and then got up because he was trying to get his video and his audio to sync up. So I think he jumped out. Is going to jump back in.
Nice.
Yeah. And my shirt is brown. It's not green.
It looks green.
That's
I do
too
not
funny.
know.
Karen,
what
all
the
of your
deal
shirts are
is.
green.
Yeah, everything's green.
Well, it's all good. Your eyes are purple.
Yeah, that'll work. They are green or hazily. Hey, Andrew Gillespie went to Eva to see if he could get ICLs, and she said he is not eligible, but she'd be happy to give him LASIK.
Wow.
Who's this?
Yeah, Andrew Gillespie.
Ah.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Woo, look at that.
Hey, there
guy.
he is. There he is. Wow. I've never seen you in a suit, Dr. Montgomery. Usually some scrubs. Wow, man. Looking good. Looking good.
I clean up pretty well sometimes.
You do.
I just hope you're wearing shorts.
Well, no, you know what? You never know, right?
So I typically post up at a Starbucks like I am now, and the Starbucks I normally go to in Coral Gables, they know me well, and people are in and out all the time. There was a guy, kid you not, sitting like 2 feet from me. I'd seen him at the Starbucks all day long. He was wearing like a workout gear. And then about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, he pops out of the bathroom and he has a shirt, tie, a sports coat, but still had his gym shorts underneath. He's doing an interview of some kind. I don't know what the conversation was. I'm like,
Oh my
that
God.
guy. And I could see the person who he was interviewing with, and he had no idea. I was like, that's slick.
It is right.
That's
Oh,
pretty
boy.
awesome.
It probably happens a lot more often than we care to admit.
Oh, right, exactly.
Oh my gosh. Well, we're so excited to hear your presentation. Dr. Montgomery, I was telling Barry that you've actually made it really fun too.
I try to put some levity in it.
Yeah, it's hilarious. I can't wait.
Good.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah. All right, we're almost there, right? Let's see.
And Tripler was figuring.
Dr. Montgomery, who do you know at Tripler that Travis that you had reached out to invite?
Oh,
Who's
Chris
that?
Hartley. Chris Hartley.
Oh yeah, okay, right. You mentioned him before.
Yeah, but the thing about it is I think they're still in clinic.
Yeah.
So he said he couldn't make it.
Yeah, it's still 4. It's only 4 o'clock out here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, he couldn't make it. But I do have, like I said, I did invite 2 other docs. One that has his own practice in Ohio, and Dr. Rivers. The guy in Ohio, his name is Dr. Patrick Spencer. Really good guy. He has his own refractive, kind of a comprehensive ophthalmology practice.
What city in Ohio?
And he's in Dayton.
Okay.
He's in Dayton.
That's right next to Rat Pat, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's right close, about an hour away.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Very cool. Hello.
I'm Tripler. I know you. We don't have our video on, but now we can hear you. So thank you so
well,
much.
That's good.
Wonderful. We're so excited to have you.
You want me to turn on camera?
Yeah, it always makes
Yes, let's see your beautiful faces.
Oh. Well, I have it. The setup is not as good, so I think we'll just leave it as
okay
on our for audio. Yeah. All
right, no problem at all. Well, good. Well, you can see our faces, and so I think that we're going to get started. We're going to have another couple folks who heard about the Dr. Montgomery speaking. They're going to jump on hopefully shortly. But this is for you, so we're going to go and get things started. I will go ahead and kick things off by kind of some first of all thanking Aaron for helping me put this together. We really do appreciate the time that you guys are giving us right now, and also for the hospitality which that she and the others showed me a few weeks back when I visited Tripoli myself. You guys have a great facility, and we're looking forward to hopefully working with you in the future.
Okay.
So with that in mind, my name is David Spence. I'm the National Director for ArcScan. And
She's trying to chime in.
Who is?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Hi, Dave.
Oh, hi,
Erin. Hey, so we just wanted to, for just expectations and stuff, just wanted to, we do also have a meeting following.
Okay.
If this be 15 minutes would be all right, for the presentation.
Oh, wow.
No.
I thought I had a considerably a bit more time than that.
Well, then we should skip to Dr. Montgomery's part.
Yes.
Okay, well then we can go and pivot.
Here we go.
Yeah, 15 minutes. We're going to give you, the best part of
Oh, wow.
what do we have to offer. We have Dr. Montgomery with us.
Is there a better time? You said you have another meeting in 15 minutes?
Yes.
We normally have a meeting, the service meeting at 1 o'clock. And our chief gonna leave here at 2, so we need to finish our meeting.
Oh.
If you can.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I got more slides in 15 minutes, but okay.
Yeah. Do you want to reschedule for a different time or something?
I'd
like to do this right.
Yeah, you're not
So
gonna
how
get
long, if we got a schedule, how long is that gonna be?
It's gonna be considerably long. We thought it was gonna be like an hour.
We thought we were told, my understanding when I spoke to Aaron is we'd have an hour.
Yeah.
We need to set up another day.
Okay.
Okay.
We can do that. I'd rather do that than try and fumble and make this happen in 15 minutes. I think it wouldn't do it justice. I'll get with Aaron and get a time where we can do this right. How's that sound?
Okay. Sounds good.
All right. Sorry for the miscommunication there. Aaron, I'll reach out to you shortly. Okay.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Not a problem at all. We'll get it. No problem. All right. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Dr. Montgomery,
Dr. Spencer's
appreciate your willingness here to reschedule. Thank you. Yeah,
Oh,
that's
no
tough,
problem.
but you're right.
Hello.
Let's do this right. Hey, there's Bruce Rivers. Hey.
Well, you know what? I can give it for is Bruce there and then Dr. Spencer. I can definitely do it for them.
We would love that.
We can kind of do it like we would normally do because they're valued
Very
doctors
good.
as well. So
If that's okay, we would love that.
okay.
Do you want to?
So you can just do the normal, which we were going to do.
Thank you.
Is Dr. Spencer? I see. Is your mic not on? You got to introduce yourself. You got to introduce yourself to everybody, Doc. Put your camera on.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hear you.
Okay, good.
Do you have a camera? Are you indisposed? You're not in the bathroom.
I'm acting very challenged right now. Okay.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to. I thought it was on, but I'm looking for the camera. Here it is.
It should be right next to the.
No,
there you go. There we go.
Hello.
There we go.
Hey there. All right.
We're so glad you could come.
Yeah.
I don't know. You're looking awful polished over there.
So thank you for joining us. We were so excited when Dr. Montgomery said he'd be willing to share a little bit about ArcScan. And honestly, that's the interesting part is what people actually do with the device. But we wanted to start with Christine just having a few moments kind of introducing the ArcScan. And Dr. Rivers, you've seen the ArcScan, right?
Is he on?
You're
Yeah,
on
he's
mute,
on
Dr.
mute.
Rivers.
Oh, he's on mute. Is that J?
Yeah.
JR?
No, I've seen it.
Awesome. And then I think
okay.
the only rule to all of this is it's for all of you. So whatever questions or comments or thoughts you might have, here for you. So Christine, do you want to just kick us off then?
I will. Is Spence heading back our way?
Yeah, I've texted him. I hope
Okay.
he does. Yeah, he will.
Well, I am Christine, and I've met almost all of you, but not Dr. Spence. So pleased to meet you. I'm manager of clinical applications. That means I'm out in the field doing, in fact, I'm the one who's road weary over here. So my background's on the clinical side. I was VP of operations in several refractive surgery clinics and surgery centers for a long time, 16 years. And now I've been with ARCScan for about a year and a half. And, you know, we're just so pleased to have Dr. Montgomery here to discuss his real world perspective for sure. And we'll talk about, you know, really why our ARCScan sites value this device, honestly. As you may know, it's a very high frequency robotic ultrasound, and at 50 megahertz, it really delivers incredibly high resolution images of the entire interior segment, including behind the iris, as you see there. In addition to detailed images of the cornea, and that's right down to the 1 micron, so very, very detailed and sensitive. And next, when we talk about repeatability, really high on that list is, you know, to appreciate that because it is a robotic ultrasound, the images that are taken at specific meridian locations on the eye are repeatable. And that means from scanning session to scanning session and from operator to operator. And I say also our clinics they care that not only is the ARCScan easier to operate than a handheld UBM, but it's easier on the patients as well. And then we also talk about broad clinical applications. If you want to, so here are some of those applications. I'd say, you know, this is where Dr. Montgomery is going to really share his experiences, but currently most of our clinics and hospitals, they're using the ARCScan in their laser vision correction candidacy screenings, as well as their PIOL or ICL lens sizing decisions. Post-surgical assessments, also really important application for both laser vision correction and the post-ICL surgeries. Many of our doctors, they also will use this post-surgical piece as a way to analyze their techniques. And then some glaucoma applications as well. Let us move forward. So here's a really quick peek at the whole system. Comprised of software, the fluidics module. Of course, we're talking about ultrasound, so we have to have a fluidics pathway. And then the imaging module as well. And within that piece there on the front are all those gears and motors that are moving that ultrasound probe in the X, Y, Z and axes, as well as rotationally. And there's an arc-shaped piece that allows that probe to maintain the proper position to give us these incredible images that we see. So all that's happening within that imaging module. There is one, I'll just point out there in the lower left-hand corner, there's a disposable that is that you also see on the front of the device there, and that allows for a barrier between the two fluids, and that's a 1 per patient piece that allows the patient to position their eye right up next to the device there. Just some examples of the images compared to the OCT. So you can see the clarity and the precision and cornea there at the top, of course, and then anterior segment postoperative. I love that image. It really shows those haptics and that you can truly see and measure what the mid-peripheral vault would be postoperatively, and then a nice capsule scan there at the bottom as well. Compared to the OCT, we all know, right, you can't see behind the iris with the OCT. Examples of cornea scans here. This one happens to be a post-op smile. I don't know how many times I've had my eye imaged, not as many as Barry probably, but I have it. I try to have it imaged at every single one of our sites, and I have an 18-year-old LASIK flap that you can still see.
Oh, wow.
An example here, I know that Dr. Montgomery is going to touch on this, so I'll let him explain it, but this is one of the cornea maps that are produced from our cornea scans.
And so Spence, do you want to talk a little bit about the specific doctors and why you chose these, and especially Dr. Parkhurst?
You're on mute, Spence. You're on mute, bud.
Sorry, when they threw it for a loop with the whole triplet thing, so I had to get off and send an email to Aaron to get that started. So I apologize for that whole miscommunication.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and
so
who are you? Have you met Dr. Rivers and Dr. Spencer?
Dr. Rivers, I know very well. I've known this is like my first, days at ArcScan. The other gentleman I do not know. Hello there, sir. I'm David Spence, National Director here at ArcScan. How are you?
Very good. Patrick Spencer.
Spence and Spencer. There may be a relation there.
Go. I was like, I kept saying Spence, talking like me, or
You got the shaved head, the whole thing.
Right. I'm big brother.
Well, welcome, certainly. Yeah, so these are some of the most frequent users of the ArcScan that support both their refractive and their ICL work. Dr. Lin is probably our highest volume. Between Dr. Robert Lin and Dr. Greg Parkhurst, the two on the left, are the top two implanters of ICL. Dr. Lin in particular, he really relies heavily, much like Dr. Montgomery, relies heavily on our epithelial mapping capabilities to screen those patients for keratoconus. Dr. Ava Kim, both Ava Kim and Dr. Monson, the two on the right, really do leverage the ICL capabilities of what the ArcScan has to offer. And getting back to Dr. Greg Parkhurst, he, if you don't know, I say, how long ago, Barry, did Dr. Parkhurst separate from? I'm not sure if it's Air Force or Army, but how long ago?
It's been better than five or 6 years. It's been a while.
It had to be pretty recent because I went to the MERS meeting back in January of this year, and his name was still, very top of mind whenever in ICL or refractive circles. He's somewhat of, I guess, a rock star, but he's done very, very well after separating from the military, and has a really very, very productive practice in San Antonio.
Just like Bruce.
we're trying to get there. He's the model that I'm aiming for. So
there you go. Has he seen your practice yet, though?
No, he hasn't. But
yeah.
Greg and I talk quite a bit, and I talked to him quite a bit before I opened, just getting some feedback from him. So yeah, he's definitely the guy to watch.
Oh yeah.
Dr. Spencer, back to you for kind of my stream of consciousness. Are you also prior military, and can you tell us a little bit about your practice?
No, I'm not prior military. I'm private practice solo. Last 25, 26 years here in Dayton, Ohio, and so a lot of all over the place, general type stuff, refractive work. We have a residency that I help with here in town, and I chair our department of ophthalmology in the Kettering Health System here. So
okay, and
Dr. Montgomery, long time ago.
Right. We go way back.
Nice.
This is just that we do have a pretty good relationship. I think Barry can probably speak to this more than I can, but we first went commercial in the United States. The first 10 systems were at active duty military sites throughout the country to support their warfighter refractive programs, and we've been servicing them ever since. And these are just some pictures of us out there taking care of our military sites and those customers.
Yeah, it was on purpose, and here they are.
Yeah, and these are the 10 systems that are currently throughout the United States, and these are the 3 that post MERS meeting we're able to get a request through the system, and should be delivered sometime by the end of this year at Fort Campbell, Fort Hood, and also a second system at Camp Lejeune, because they were actually the first system we placed. It was serial number 9, so it's pretty low in the order, and we've been out there several times. It's just aged out, and so they've decided to just invest in the new technology. So that's also nice to have a repeat customer from the military. So if you know any of these sites and ophthalmologists that may be accessible to you, give them a call. They're very willing to give you their thoughts, opinions, and best practices, much like our speaker of the evening, Dr. Lieutenant Colonel Derrick Montgomery, who both of you pretty much know. So I won't even get into the details because you probably know them better than all of us do. But go ahead, Dr. Montgomery, go ahead and take it away.
All right. Well, I always look forward to participating in a robust opportunity to exchange important ideas, especially when we don't have to wear pants, right? So,
TMI.
no, I really do. And now shoes, I do have on pants. Now shoes, I plead the fifth, but I do have on pants. I'm a kind of an all or none kind of guy. So I'm all in when I go into things. Like I actually took a shower before I started this, and put on my suit, and for some reason I spritzed some cologne on for some reason. I have no idea. But
that's because you're not wearing shoes.
Right? That's a good one. So in the interest of time, I know these guys have a million things to do. I'm gonna try to get forward and get cracking at it. So you guys know who I am. I deployed to Joint Base Balad, Iraq in 2009. Fun fact, I'm an honorary Tuskegee Airman because that is the 332nd Expeditionary Medical Group. So anybody who actually is deployed there can boast the honor of saying they are an honorary Tuskegee Airman. So, yeah. So I'm Cornell Fellowship trained from Doheny back when it was with USC before they got divorced. Now they're with UCLA. I'm Chief of Refractive and Ophthalmology have been at the Air Force Academy, Wright Pat. That's where I cross paths with Dr. Spencer and Andrews right now. So let me ask you a question. How do I get the bar that has all of the like your camera and stuff to go off, because it's yeah, it's in my way. I can't read the bottom. Is there any way to let me see? Oh, got it. Okay, got it. Okay.
Sweet.
Okay, so I performed thousands of corneal refractive procedures on airmen, soldiers, pilots, and cadets. Next slide. So why is critical to get it right? So my patients include pilots, special ops soldiers, generals from all over the world who rely on exquisite vision without glasses to complete the mission. A soldier cannot afford to lose a contact or glasses in these austere environments. If you can't see them, you can't shoot them. That's the business that we're in. Next slide. So pilots are our centurions of justice. Now, although I can't boast that I've operated on Tom Cruise, we do operate on real life pilots that actually do this kind of stuff in real life. And there's no room for 20/30 vision in the cockpit. So a fully trained pilot actually can cost up to $8 million. So we can't afford to lose even one. Next slide. So these are my disclosures. These opinions are my own, not that of the U.S. Air Force or the Department of Defense. I have no financial interest. And in fact, because I am active duty, I have no financial interest whatsoever. Next slide. So what's so special about ArcScan? It's really the only very high frequency ultrasound on the market. It provides
the slide hasn't advanced yet. Aaron, can you help with that?
It has on our side.
Oh, it hasn't for me.
Oh, okay.
Let me jump out and jump back in.
Okay. It provides exquisitely accurate imaging of the anterior segment, including the cornea, anterior chamber angle, iris, ciliary body, trabecular meshwork, and the lens. Next slide. So there's several applications. We talked about this before: corneal imaging and biometry. You can look at scars and irregularities and things like LASIK flaps, like she talked about, glaucoma imaging, surgical planning, ICL sizing is a huge one, cataract accommodative intraocular lens capsule imaging, epithelial mapping for refractive surgery evaluation, and LASIK flap and smile imaging for enhancements. Next slide. So ArcScan is essentially two machines in one. It really does all of the functions of an OCT machine plus a UBM, or an ultrasound biomicroscopy machine. It provides, obviously, we talked about the corneal mapping, ICL, and glaucoma. Next. So let's talk about epithelial mapping for a second. And I would be remiss if I didn't pay homage to the godfather of epithelial mapping and the inventor of ArcScan, Dan Reinstein. He demonstrated back in 1994 that color maps representing thickness of the corneal epithelium and stroma could be generated using this technology. It was really a significant turning point from just kind of measuring the epithelium to actually mapping it in a way that's clinically relevant. Next slide. So first off, why is the epithelium so important? Obviously, it serves as a barrier to infection, significantly affects the manifest refraction. It accounts for about a diopter of corneal power at the central 2 millimeter zone. And the epithelium serves to mask irregularities on the cornea, but behaves differently depending on the shape of the irregularity. Next slide. So my cone head is a great analogy for the cornea. So there's few rules of thumb. So the epithelium tends to thin over the steep areas, which would be my cone head. And then that's the exact mechanism by which I lost my hair. And the epithelium thickens around the cone, which is my hairline now. So it's basically, it thins in areas of high friction and thickens in low friction areas. So it's usually thinner at the superiorly and thicker inferiorly. And the goal of this is the epithelium is trying to undo and or smooth out any perturbations in the cornea from trauma or surgery. Next slide. So we talked about some of the applications. We can go next slide. So there's several ways of measuring the epithelial thickness, confocal microscopy, OCT. Next slide. But there's really essentially only two relevant technologies on the market for epithelial mapping, which we talk about, the ArcScan and the OCT. Next. So in my book, OCT is good, but it gets the silver medal. It's very good at focally observing all the layers of the cornea, but it has a few drawbacks. It doesn't extend as far posteriorly into the ciliary body and beyond. Epithelial maps are not as intuitive, it's not as easily read, and most surgeons still need to purchase a UBM to get the entire function of an ArcScan. Next slide. So hold up, wait a minute. What the heck does a normal cornea look like? So these are some ArcScan epithelial maps of a normal versus a keratoconic. Can you guys see my arrow? You can't? You can't, okay. So basically this is where, so the cooler colors denote a thinner epithelium. The hotter colors denote a thicker epithelium. So this is normal. Basically, when the lid comes down over the eyeball, it kind of thins because of the friction up at this area, and it's not as in contact lower here, so it thickens. As opposed to a keratoconic, this is where the thinning is. So the cone, the tip or the apex of the cone is right here, and that's where it thins the most. So understand the epithelium is trying its best to smooth out any disease process in the cornea. So it thins over the cornea, over the apex, and it thickens around the base. So you see this donut kind of shape. Next slide. And just for normal ranges, basically there's usually nasally is a couple microns thinner, and it's a little thicker, thicker, and it's a little thicker inferiorly. Next slide. So yeah, Dr. Montgomery. So how does this affect my patients? Next slide. Next slide. So I hope you guys are still with me, checking the radar for whoever cares out there. If you want safe, happy patients and fat pockets, you should care. Because the studies show that accurate data and including epithelial mapping with ArcScan can actually increase your LASIK candidacy by 7%. And that's actually real money. We also want to prevent ectasia when it's inappropriate to operate and stay out of court. Next slide. So this is an example of, obviously this is kind of exaggerated, but if you go from the right to the left, These are corneas at the top. And if you look at the bottom, you have the topographies of what you would see for these corneas, and you can see the actual Ks down here. It progressively gets worse as you go left. But if you look at the epithelial mapping, all of these start to have a donut shape. And if you go to the most severe, this looks exactly like, so you see the inferior steepening on the topography, and that kind of corresponds with that epithelial thinning right in that same area. Next slide. And to show you that I'm not completely biased against other machines, I threw in some OCTs to let you know how it will look as well. These are some Pentacams, and you can kind of see the cornea very well with this, but like I said, it's not as intuitive. Good. Next slide. And this is a study that we looked at the subclinical keratoconus detection using OCT with their epithelial thickness maps. And I really wanted to show you the difference between how the ARC scans mapping, next slide, and the OCTs looked. So these are the OCTs epithelial mapping. And if you look at the bottom one, the bottom case is actually a form-fruit keratoconic. So the left column is the pachymetry map, and the second column is actually the epithelial map. So you can kind of see down here, there's a little kind of bluish area that signifies some of the thinning, but it's very hard to see. If you go up to case 3, the subclinical keratoconus, there's just a little, I mean, you really have to take out your bifocals and see this little area right here. So it's very easy to miss the epithelial mapping on it has to be very, very, you can see on the case 2, this is very severe. We don't usually have problems looking at the extremes, the severe keratoconics. Those are easy to pick up. The money is with, or the magic is where we can pick up those ones that are kind of on the borderline. And you see it's very hard to see on these particular maps. Next slide. So I just want to kind of go over this really quick. So the normals, the first column, you can see the nice topographies, the nice orb scans, which you don't see anymore. And then this is the nice epithelial mapping right there that you can see that normal pattern. The keratoconic has that same little donut shape pattern that you can see. The one I really want you to look at is the one on the right, the case 3. So if you look at case 3, the Ks are pretty normal. If you look at the topographies look pretty symmetric. If you look at the orb scans, there's not really much. It's not really much that you can see on the orb scan. But if you look at the epithelial mapping, you start to see a small development of that donut shape. This is actually keratoconus. This should scare you because probably 9 surgeons out of 10, if not more, if not 10 out of 10, would probably operate on this patient. We'd probably give that patient LASIK and at the very least PRK. But this is actually keratoconus, and the only way you can find that is to look at the epithelial mapping from the ARC scan that really shows it very well. Next slide. So epithelial mapping could be a lifesaver. It's crucial to avoiding these potentially disastrous patients for refractive surgery. It's a very good adjunct to topography and specifically Pentacam to screen out dangerous patients for enhancement. And the epithelial pattern analysis has the capability to detect ectasia before topography. Next slide. So let's look at some hypothetical. This is an actual hypothetical patient. So DG is a 26-year-old male pilot who happens to be an attorney as well. He's deploying soon to the Ukraine and wants LASIK for quick recovery. By the way, his father is a 4-star general who golfs with the Secretary of Defense, so no pressure. You see his manifest refractions. You know, he's probably moderate myope, but he does have some astigmatism. His Ks are pretty normal. Family history, has a brother of a corneal disease that he doesn't know what it's called. So next slide. You can see the pentacams here. Everything for the right eye looks pretty good. Next slide. This is the left eye. Has a little bit some red here for the progression index. Start to see some red here on the bad, but the big D is pretty normal. Next slide. So what are your options? You know, what would you do? LASIK, PRK, ICL, no surgery, call your lawyer. What's next? So next slide. So which one do you want to be? Do you want to be the goofy doctor that hates ARC-Scan? Or do you want to be the cutting edge ophthalmologist that uses ARC-Scan as much as they possibly can? Next slide. So the goofy doctor does LASIK on this patient. The only problem is 2 years later, the patient comes back with ectasia and needs a corneal transplant. He gets sued for $4 million and now he's living in his cousin's basement. Why? Next slide. Because, and this is the slide she showed, because this is the actual ARC-Scan. If you can see here, if you divert your attention to the top left, the epithelial mapping is here and it's pretty plain. Right here, you have some thinning and you have some thickening around here. You have that donut shape. If you take a look at this one below it, you have the epithelial standard deviation from normal. So that standard deviation from normal is thinner than an age-matched control, and it lines up with the epithelial map. If you look down here, the Reinstein-Silverman keratoconic score is actually 1.8, and it's actually into the grade 2. So that's somebody you definitely would not want to operate on for refractive surgery. Next slide. And that's why we just kind of went over that. Next slide.
What about a grade 1? You said anything?
It was a grade 2. It was a grade 2. Okay. You want to go back?
No.
Okay. Okay. So go back one slide real quick. So meanwhile, the cutting edge doc. Oh no, go to the.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. Meanwhile, the cutting edge doc that had the ARC-Scan is vacationing in Aruba. So be the cutting edge doc. Next slide. So page number 2, 26-year-old female seeking refractive surgery. There's the manifest. You can see the normal Ks, normal pachymetries. Next slide. These are the pentacams. You see a little bit of inferior steepening, not too much, not too bad for the pentacam on the right eye. Next slide. A little asymmetric bow tie, but otherwise pretty normal for the left eye. Next slide. And you can see the ARC-Scan epithelial mapping for the right eye is pretty normal. There's a couple little dots in there, but it doesn't. If you look at the standard deviation map, there isn't any corresponding thinning here. So this looks pretty normal for the right eye. Next slide. And this is the ARC-Scan for the left eye. That looks normal too. Next slide. So what do I do now? Next slide. So the best options, what are you going to do at this point? So go ahead. Next. So you could either probably do PRK or SMILE. Even though you saw that inferior steepening on the pentacam that might give you pause, the epithelial mapping just basically says, hey, it gives you that nice, warm, fuzzy feeling that you can operate on this patient with no sequela. Next slide. So case 3, patient presented for SMILE evaluation, 21-year-old male. Pretty high prescription. He has a 5-year habit of soft eyeball rubbing about 1 to 2 times per day, 3 to 4 seconds. We have some Galilei scans, and the preoperative scans on the right eye, I'll tell you before we even look at them, showed inferior steepening with an IS ratio of about 1.44 with no posterior elevation. And on the left eye, the IS ratio was 1.04. Next slide. So these are the Galilei for the right eye, pretty normal. Next slide. And these are for the right. This is the left eye. Next slide. This has some a little inferior steepening here on the right eye, but you know, it remains to be seen if that's significant. Keep going. Next slide. Same thing for the left side, but there's like nice bow tie here. Next slide. So the goofy doc still refuses to get an arc scan and defers surgery. Okay, because there's that little inferior steepening. He was worried about getting sued again. You know, he was just moving out of his cousin's basement. He's not going back. So go ahead, next slide. So the thing about it is, you look at the epithelium, and the epithelium is exactly normal. Next slide. That's the right eye and the left eye. Left eye, same thing, that nice normal pattern. You see the RSK value is way above any of the grades of keratoconus. You're in the clear. So this one, even though he was worried about, he was, you know, trigger shy, and he didn't want to operate, the normal epithelium from the arc scan mapping allowed that patient should be operated on. Go ahead, next slide. So don't be goofy and let money just fly out the window either, okay? We don't want to get sued, but we don't want to leave money on the table either. So next slide. Be a cutting edge doc and grab an arc scan. Next slide. So this slide, I just wanted to kind of talk to you about really quickly the combined, the power of combining a Pennicam with the epithelial mapping. It's really, really important. You really can't, the arc scan is great, but you don't want to just use it by itself. You want to use it with some other modality that can tell you about posterior elevation, and the Pennicam is a really good one. So next slide. So if you look at the figure A, you see the arc scan mapping. It shows that donut shape that we talked about. Figure B and C shows the anterior and posterior elevation, and is right in that same spot. That's the biggest thing, because if it's not in the same spot, it doesn't really denote a cone. But if you can actually see something on a posterior surface, anterior surface of either your arc scan or, you know, whatever you have, and then get the arc scan and it's thin right in that same spot, it's a very, very powerful tool. The R squared of the coefficient of determination in this study was 0.83. So it was very, very high. In this study, actually, the bad big D, the threshold was 1.61, had a 100% sensitivity for keratoconus, but missed 8 normals. So the normals were actually identified by the arc scan. Okay, next slide. Last case, and we're coming into the home stretch. So this is a 38-year-old male, web designer, wants smile, pretty normal, manifest Ks are normal, slit lamp is normal. Next slide. So would you want to do LASIK, smile, or PRK on this patient? Like this arc scan, this bad, looks pretty clean. It's the right eye. Next patient, next slide. These are the topos of the right eye. Next slide. Pretty clean. Left eye looks pretty clean too. Left eye looks similar. Next slide. And left eye has a little mild steepening, but for most part, it's pretty symmetrical. Next slide. So all is well. I'm thinking smile. Looking at the right eye, I'm looking at the arc scan. This is a perfectly normal pattern. You see the RSK is in the green. We're all set. You know, we're calling the patient to say, you know, we're going to hook you up for smile. Next slide. And then we happen to glance. Oh, wait, we look at the left eye and we got a little something going on here. So we got a little thinning right here and that little start of that donut kind of shape. And we look right here and we see the standard deviation in that same spot is high, basically. So it's on the scan, on the chart, it's actually at the bottom, okay? And the RSK value is actually, I think, 1.6. So that's in grade 1. So even though everything pretty much looked pretty good, even the right eye was completely normal, and the left eye was completely normal up until you saw the arc scan. This is something that, we really would want to kind of hold off and maybe not do refractive surgery on. Maybe this might be an ICL patient. Next slide. And this is what really seals the deal when you see that the epithelium standard deviations from normal was 3.42 in that left eye. Next slide. So I think ICL would probably be a better, if this patient was stable, probably be a better option. Next slide. So smart doc defers corneal refractive surgery and gets to keep his practice. Next slide. So real quick, we're just going to go over how we size. So does size matter? Yes, it does. The wrong size ICL can spell disaster. What were you thinking? So next slide. So we are all searching for the holy grail of ICL sizing. Too large and you have endothelial cell loss and possibly angle closure and increased IOP. Too small and the risk of cataract is higher. Extensive literature looking for the holy grail of the sizing technique looks at maybe the white to white, is sulcus to sulcus, is angle to angle measurement. That will give us all the answers that we seek. Next slide. So this is my ICL workup. I do the arc scan first, IOL master, AR, pupillometry, do a manifest and dilated exam, endothelial cell density, and the Pinacam. Next slide. And these are what you would actually see when I start with the arc scan. It's harder to see, but you can see these red lines here. So I can actually measure the endothelial cell depth from the lens, the crystal lens, all the way to the endothelium. Then I can measure the angle to angle, scleral spur to scleral spur. I can go, all the way down to the ciliary body inner diameter. And this kind of gives you on the right, this is a blow up of what you see here. And it gives you averages. So if you do about 6 or 7 of them, each one, it'll average it for you. And then you'll have an average here. And these are the numbers that I actually put into the ICLsizing.com. Next slide. So I made my own little kind of spreadsheet that kind of consolidates everything from the IOL master to Pinacam to arc scan, and it has all the parameters from both eyes from the arc scan and the pupils and the endothelial cell density. Next slide. And what I do is I transpose that to the ICLsizing.com. This was by Reinstein. And you put all those values in. Next slide. And it actually kicks out your predictable vaults. So based on different studies. So Kojima study, Doherty study, Nakamura, the London Vision Center, which is Reinstein. And it actually tells you what it recommends. And it actually will tell you, based on the size of the lens, what you would expect the vaults to be. So for this particular patient, I probably would choose a 13.2. And I would look down here and see what would I expect my vault to be from this particular study. About 400 for this. Nakamura says it should be about 5. Let me see here. Nakamura actually says it's going to be a little bit higher. But I really trust the Reinsteins, and I trust all these that kind of line up. Next slide. And then I put it in the OCO-site. And the OCO-site tends to overestimate the size of what we should use. And now with the Evo, we can size a lot smaller. We can go a lot closer to the lens without getting the risk of the cataract than we could before. So I definitely go with the ICL sizing. And I haven't had, knock on wood, I've been doing ICL surgery for about 4 years. And I've done a lot of them, and I haven't had any one that had a really large vault or a very small vault. Next. So the last couple things I just wanted to throw in there just to show you that it can do. because we went over some really big things just to kind of throw in that it can show the difference between contact lens warpage and ectasia. Next slide. Julie Schauhorn, the daughter of the father of Military Refractive Surgery Center, surgery, Mr. Schauhorn, Dr. Schauhorn, did this study, and she distinguished contact lens warpage from ectasia. She used OCT, but really ARC-Scan can do anything that OCT can do. So next slide. Basically, she showed that there's thickening in the area of inferior steepening or max curvature with contact lens warpage as opposed to keratoconus, which kind of masquerades itself. Okay, so it's actually the opposite of what you would think. Next slide. What else does it do? Can you say dry eyes, boys and girls? I knew you could. Next slide. It actually does dry eye too. So basically, dry eye patients have statistically thicker epithelium than normal. So if you have a recalcitrant dry eye patients, or you're trying to figure out what's going on, put them under the ARC-Scan. You can actually show it that they do have some proliferation. Next slide. So the bottom line is epithelial mapping is a crucial part of any self-respecting cornea or refractive surgeon. Used for the pre-op evaluation, you can actually use for post-op ectasia evaluation to figure out, and then useful for contact lens evaluation, dry eye, and I really believe this is going to become the standard adjunct to refractive evaluation in the next 5 to 10 years. Next slide. So, without further ado, I don't know if you guys can hear this. Can you hear this?
Yeah.
Okay, so how does ARC-Scan and the OCT fare in a head-to-head winner-take-all matchup? If you had to choose one machine, which would it be? Okay. Next slide. Next slide. In this corner, weighing in at 264 pounds, 4 feet 6 inches, we have the lean, mean ARC-Scan machine. Ah! Next. And in this corner, weighing in at 230 pounds, the Tower of Power, the Spectral Domain OCT. Ah! Next slide. So Dexy did a study to try to put them head to head to see, just compare the two epithelial thickness maps. I told you my bias. I told you why I use one over the other. Next slide. And basically, they showed that there was a pretty even matchup in terms of measuring the epithelium. Obviously, it doesn't measure anything behind the iris, but they found it was pretty even when it comes to just measuring it. Mapping it is a whole different story. But in my book, the winner is, next slide, ARC-Scan goes with the win. OCT is a great modality, but because of ease of use, versatility, and cost, I choose ARC-Scan. Next slide. Thank you very much.
Yeah, look at the little girl.
Oh, what a sweetie.
Yeah, that's my family there. So you guys have any questions?
Love it.
Beautiful.
That was good, Derrick.
That was so
it.
good. Oh my gosh,
Thank
I
you.
love
We got you out of here. We got you done before an hour, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any questions, Dr. Spencer, Bruce, Dr. Rivers?
This is my first introduction fully to it right there, so I'm definitely going to be hitting you up to ask some more questions in there. Unfortunately, I got to get to running. So,
I get it. I get it.
But no, that is interesting technology right there. I want to see how you've been using it. Definitely.
Yeah.
So, but thanks. No, I appreciate the invitation.
Okay. I
Thank
appreciate you coming, Doc.
I gotta go.
All right, then.
All right.
Godspeed.
Thank you. Nice to
Right.
meet you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Wonderful
you.
job, you guys.
All right. We good?
Thank
Yeah,
you
that was
so
good. That
much.
was really good.
It was awesome to see both of you.
Appreciate it.
So
Appreciate it.
good.
So now we got to figure out how we get Tripler back on the line, right? At some point.
Yeah, you're on mute, Spence. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, so I jumped off quickly when Tripler got off to send Aaron an email. I blind copied the ArcScan team and Dr. Montgomery on that, and she's pretty good about getting back to me on that. So I'll try and get that scheduled within the next week or so.
Okay.
And I told her we need 45 minutes to an hour solid.
Right.
So to reset the expectation, which is what I thought we had talked about initially, because she asked me how much time you need, and I told her.
Right.
But maybe she got overruled. Anyhow, we're going to reset that and we'll get this done. But they I think will enjoy that. I know I did. Very informative, very upbeat. It was engaging. So thanks so much. And this is a great trial run.
All right. All right.
Yeah.
And
Derrick
I'll
always does a good job.
Thank you.
I've presented with him before, and I like to go first. So,
Yeah.
I'll follow,
And then,
I'll follow your footsteps. He's my mentor. I follow in his footsteps. I
Aw.
appreciate it. Yes, sir.
And
Yes, sir.
Barry at different times, and I have been trying to get after the folks at Travis as well.